good time. You got one home?
Yeah, I moved earlier.
Yeah, yours.
Okay. All right. I'll run to the restaurant again.
Oh, man.
is real quick, see what's going on. Get started. And that silence, I have to make sure I silence off.
Oh, did you do that?
Yeah, I did. No, my phone be the one ringing.
Oh, the songs.
Yeah, because people think of it. People think they do. So we still got quite a few folks that registered that are yet to make it. So to give them a few more minutes and then get started. They might be tapping in online, I don't know, because if they're not online yet, then we'll just get going with what we got. And yeah, we'll be getting started shortly. Should be a good time. We won't take the whole like 2 hours because it's just me up here, not and General Barry. And I have some words from him that I'll share in the beginning, because fortunately, you know, he is the Adjutant General of the Nevada National Guard. So I'm a National Guard guy, I'm an Army Guard guy, and there's also Army Guard and Air Force Guard. He's in charge of all of them. He's the Air Force General, so he's in charge of anybody who has National Guard in their signature block in the state of Nevada. And unfortunately, he got a work call, duty call, so he got me. But yeah, we're still gonna have a good time, and because of that, we're probably not gonna go as long as it was initially expected in the registration. So you'll get some of your time back, and we'll, have time to fellowship, and if you want to walk around campus or something before the CPC luncheon, you'll be able to do so. So give us a little bit more time. We're hoping that some of the people who registered are out trying to find parking or something, and we'll be walking in shortly.
morning. Everybody, hey, brother, come on down a little further there. Not, I mean a lot further. Come on down a lot further. We're gonna pack in.
We on bike. Martin, cousin. Cause I'm about to burn up now. Good morning. How you doing? Hey, Miss Lisa. What's going on? Good morning. I just seen you. Been 24 hours.
Feel like I'm still, like everything, feel like I'm still in the same day.
And then I didn't take time to get a book back.
I think I got you.
Try to take those.
Girl, she's the best. Down by Stanford, I don't want in that little area, with all the little shops. Big campus. She's on the same floor as Kia.
Hey, we're ready.
So Kia does her.
Ready.
Whenever.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to the University of Evansville Leadership Conference, where you will receive some wonderful training today by Major Brian Smith, an alumnus of the University of Evansville, 2007 graduate. I had the pleasure of knowing Brian actually when he was a student. He was a student man, now he's a grown man, and a major in the military. I'm extremely proud of his accomplishments and how far he has come in life and will continue to climb. It will be a valuable conference today in regards to the information that he's going to provide to each one of you, because all of you are leaders as well. We all continue to grow as leaders, irrespective of who we are and what we are involved in. When we stop growing, we stop learning. Irrespective of what that is that we are engaged in, if we do not continue to refine our leadership skills and think we have reached that pinnacle of excellence, we will be no good to anyone ever again that we want to consider as our subordinates. I know the military is one of the greatest organizations in the world. All branches of the U.S. military that develop leaders. The United States military knew what diversity was before we started talking about it in the civilian world. They've been practicing diversity pretty much since the First World War, we'll say. And they continue to promote people according to their individual merit. There are no favors played in the United States military when it comes time to advance in rank. It's based on your performance and your ability to lead only, not who you know or who you were kin to. So recognize today that the man that's going to stand in front of you and provide these principles of leadership to all of you is someone that has made it and accomplished it on his own merit. Now we're going to have his wonderful wife, Dr. Smith, to formally introduce her husband, Major Brian Smith, II.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Aisha Smith, and I will be introducing Brian. Major Brian D. Smith II is an infantry officer with over a decade of direct leadership experience in the United States military. In 2010, he enlisted in the Michigan Army National Guard and commissioned as an infantry officer within 1 year. As an officer with the 1st Battalion, 125th Infantry Regiment, he served one combat tour in Afghanistan as a platoon leader. Afterwards, he would assume various roles in garrison, to include 2 company commands, and the battalion's S4 Senior Logistics Officer. In 2020, he transferred to the Texas Army National Guard. Currently, Major Smith sits in a dual role. He is the S3 Plans Officer for the 72nd Infantry Brigade, combat team full-time, and manages operations for a quarter of the Texas National Guard's Hurricane Response Force. Monthly, he trains with the 136th Maneuver Enhancement Brigade as their area operations officer in charge. Brian currently lives in the Houston area with his super awesome wife. I did not put that in. That was all him. And dog Basquiat. He is a graduate of the Alabama Military Academy Officer Candidate School, the Infantry Officer Leader course, and Maneuver Captain's Career course at the Fort Benning Maneuver School of Excellence. He earned a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communications from UE and a Master's in Urban Planning from Wayne State University in Detroit. When not in uniform, Major Smith works as a transportation planner for the City of Houston and manages the city's Bikeways Master Plan. So please join me in giving him a warm welcome. You're welcome.
Good morning again.
Good morning. Thank you for your service.
I appreciate you. Thank you. So I talked a little bit today, kind of about how it's going to go and who also is not here. So first off, I want to acknowledge Major General Andre Berry, who I was supposed to be sharing this meeting with, who couldn't make it. And he did share some of his words on leadership that I want to share with the group today before I even get started with my presentation. Leadership is the capacity to influence others through inspiration, motivated by passion, generated by vision, produced by conviction, and ignited by a purpose. That's from Dr. Miles Monroe. I'm often asked if leaders are born or made. Is leadership an art or a science? Can you define yourself as a leader based on a profession? All leadership is, though, is influence. But if you look at the definition Miles Monroe gave, you also need inspiration, passion, vision, conviction, and purpose. When you study, focus, observe, and learn from the best leaders, they tend to have those traits. In addition, we can never forget you have to have at least one person to lead, yourself. So it all starts with you. Leadership is a choice. No one can make you lead yourself in a forward and positive direction but yourself. You lead differently because of your unique leader DNA. You must identify your strengths and manage your weaknesses. You have both. When you lead yourself better, you lead others better. Your personal development as a leader relies heavily on your attitude and willingness to continue to learn. A better me is a better we. Have tenacity, don't quit, and the most crucial point to remember as a leader is that it all starts with mindset. Kendra Cherry defined mindset as a set of beliefs that shape how you make sense of the world and yourself. It influences how you think, feel, and behave in any given situation. It means that what you believe about yourself impacts your success or failure. If it's going to be, it's up to me. What challenge in your life, your family, your neighborhood, your school, employer, or your business are you facing? We can complain or get better. One of the first traits that you should look for in a leader is the ability to identify and solve problems. They own the challenge and the problem. And they have an urgency about getting it right. The problems that we face in this world aren't being solved because you have not stepped up. You are the influencer being called each day so you can make a difference. We need leaders, those who are obsessed with getting better each day, who are committed to making a difference. It's time to take your life to another level. We have too many servant leaders in this world versus servant leaders. A friend of mine, he always said he always watches, he said he watches snakes in the grass so he keeps his cut. That's from my friend, not Jennifer Berry. Your calling to leave a legacy in this world better than we found it, to leave our footprint somewhere in this world, to leave something behind that endures long after we're gone. It's about making sure that our life has meaning, that our time here has mattered, and that we touch something or someone in a significant way that will affect the course of history within the small part of the universe we impact. To let the world know that I was here, I unleashed my full potential, I was engaged in what mattered, and I am committed to uplifting people, and to let my ancestors know that I am standing on their shoulders and their work, their sacrifice, and that their living was not in vain, because I am committed to making my community, our children, our schools, and this nation better. Until we as leaders get better, the struggle will continue. Thanking you in advance for your willingness to get into the arena and take on life's most pressing challenges, the fierce urgency of now. And that's from Major General Andre Berry, Class of '86. So we were kind of going to do this presentation in a dual role. A lot of his talks, we're going to talk about like forging leaders. So kind of as a junior to him, I am more in an operational setting. And in my job, in my work, I'm trying to optimize processes. I'm the one getting the mission done. So the information that I would like to share with you today is just some things that, in my opinion, the military takes for granted because it's kind of how we operate and some of the tips and tools that we use to get better. So I'm going to share it with the group. So today we're going to talk about reducing the single point of failure and how to incorporate redundancies in your leadership style. We're going to define what it is and talk about why it should be significant to you. We're going to learn how to reduce its effects by incorporating redundancies. And then one of the most effective redundancies that I've used is to build the standing operating procedure. So SOPs is my bread and butter. So we're going to talk a little bit about what you need to do, like some considerations that you want to make if you want to build your own SOP. And you know, since it's just me up here, we're not going to go fast and furious, but I will like to give you a little bit more of your time before the luncheon to give us more time to kind of fellowship, network, just chat with each other. I know I haven't seen some of y'all in a long time, and I'd like to catch up. And so for the most part, like, we're not going to have any breaks. We're all adults. If you got to go out, take a call, use the restroom or something like that, just go ahead and do so. And there will be 2 10-minute drills. Well, we'll have the opportunity to just kind of think and discuss, you know, talk amongst each other. And in those moments, the level of participation is on you. So you could participate at the level that you're comfortable with. If you want to just take notes on your own, write some things down. If you want to share with your neighbor, if you want to share with the group, it's all good. We're all family here. So, what is the single point of failure? Before I started working on this presentation, I wanted to figure out what was the definition in the civilian term. So if I was looking into coming here and I wanted to, well, what is the single point of failure? Let me Google it. Let me figure out what happens. Most of the definitions fall in line with the Wikipedia definition. A part of a system that if fails will stop the entire system from working. For the most part, they all dealt with mechanical single points of failure or even IT or computers. So like I put the bike spokes there. So for example, if the chain isn't oiled right, that might be the single point of failure on your bike. Or what's the one leg on the table that's too short or it's broken, and that's why the table's a little wobbly. A lot of the tech speak when they talk about the single point of failure is what is that line of code that didn't work? What is the one system deficiency that caused somebody to hack into the network? What is the thing? It all defines like what is the thing that caused everything to go wrong. But we're not talking about things here. We want to talk about people. We want to talk about leaders. So my challenge today is to show you how to apply the systems-based term in regards to leadership. And I'll start with a little video. So, if you've seen the movie Zoolander, it is a very outlandish movie about the fashion industry. And to kind of preface this clip, Derek and his friend Hansel are supposed to be finding dirt on a rival in the fashion industry. And in order to do so, they have to go to their boss's computer. The boss says, well, I have all these files that will incriminate them. they are in the computer. And when they show up, the boss is not there to open up the computer. So let's see what they do.
Must be the on button somewhere.
And it doesn't help that they are extremely stupid.
Let's not lose our cool. Then we're no better than the machine. It's almost 7. I gotta go. No! Derek, wait! If you go, they'll make you kill a Eurasian dude. I don't care, Hansel. I've never been late for a show in my life. I don't plan on starting now. Damn it, you're right. Do me a favor. If anything happens to me, I want you to give this to Matilda. No. Please, Hansel, take it. Please. Ah, man. Take it. Let's just say I'll hold on to it till you get back. Go! Go!
Guys, what's happening? Did you find the files?
Matilda, we got problems.
Derek's already left for the show.
No, he can't. We don't even know what the trigger is.
He just went running out of here. I couldn't stop him.
I'll call him on his phone.
He didn't have it.
What?
Yeah, he didn't have it.
What are you talking about? He always has it.
He gave it to me.
Did you find the files?
I don't even know what they look. What do they look like?
They're in the computer.
They're in the computer?
Yeah, they're definitely in there. I just don't know how he labeled them.
I got it.
You gotta figure it out. We're running out of time, Hansel. You gotta find them and meet me at the show.
Roger. In the computer. It's so simple.
He breaks the computer wide open because he doesn't know what in the computer means. So that's what I want to talk about as far as a single point of failure. Because if we notice, the person who had access to the information wasn't there. They didn't know how to access the information. And then Derek, who's kind of the leader of them two, just walks off with no guidance. I've got things to do. I've got to go do this. And then Hansel is just like, well, I don't know. I don't know how to find the files. So let's change the definition to the single point of failure as a leader whose absence compromises the success of the mission. So I want you to think about, can your team go on if you're gone? And do they have the necessary information to continue moving the work forward? You can possibly be a single point of failure if in your absence, there's no productivity, people don't know what to do, they don't have access to the important documents to keep the work going. And sometimes this isn't even a cause thing like on purpose. So I'll give you 2 examples that kind of made me want to create this presentation. So I was the board member of an environmental justice nonprofit a few years ago. And this nonprofit had a very small staff. So they had one person that was the bookkeeper, accountant, took note of all the grant money, did the grant applications, made sure the money was spent properly. The second person was the super, kind of a maintenance person. The nonprofit also managed a church that had been retrofitted into a community center. So he was the groundskeeper. He kept the heat on in the winter, kept the AC going in the summertime, made sure the building itself was good to go. And then there was a third guy who was responsible for programming. He was the one that implemented everything that needed to be executed when those grant dollars came in. He had been a pillar in the environmental justice and social movements in Detroit and beyond for decades. He was extremely knowledgeable, well-connected, and he knew how to get things done. But every good thing must come to an end. And this man in particular was ready to retire. He was like, look, I have given everything that I can in a full-time capacity, and I just want to volunteer. I want to volunteer. I want to watch my grandkids. I want to watch them grow up. I want to enjoy my life. So the board, we figured out, was like, okay, well, that's cool. We can hire somebody else. So we need to write the job description on what you do so that we know who we're looking for. It took us 3 board meetings to figure out everything that that man did, because he was that good and he had that much access to the information. He was well networked, and I mean, this was stuff that he could just recite off the top of his head. Like, this is where we are with this particular project. This is the point of contact. His phone number is this. This is the point of contact for this particular initiative. Her email address is this. This is who you need to talk to get the way forward. So we eventually agreed that he would stay on for an additional year while we led a just transition to get somebody on board that could shadow him and the work could continue to go. But we initially thought that, oh, 90 days, we'll get somebody in, it'll be good to go. That did not happen. Another example for my current job. So as Aisha mentioned, when I'm not in uniform, I work for the city of Houston as a transportation planner. If you're ever coming to visit Houston and you want to know how to get around with a bike, let me know. I built the map. And the reason why I built the map is because I used to work for the person who built the map. How it's tiered at the city, we're tiered in numbers. So like when I hired on, I was a planner 1, and I worked under a planner 2. Usually you're a planner 2 when you get your own project to be in charge of. And so the planner 2 that I was working under, she found another opportunity somewhere else, which happens. And we tried our best to do a just transition so she could let me know all the things that was happening and what meetings that I needed to go to, what are my general duties and responsibilities now that I had to take over. However, we didn't discuss passwords. Password, just something as simple as passwords. And mind you, we're also doing this transition, if you don't remember the day that Texas froze over.
Yeah.
It was during then. So as we're working the transition, I am also in uniform responding to the winter freeze event. So we got the down and dirty, but we didn't get everything done. So what happened to that, we were updating our bikeways map. We have an interactive map where we show you where all the bike lanes are that are currently there, all the ones that are getting built, and what our long-term plan is, so where they're going to be. That bikeways map was tied to her individual GIS account. So we use ArcGIS, so it was tied to her direct account. The League of American Bicyclists, they have a rating system for cities, communities, nonprofits, universities, to say who is bike friendly. You can get everything from a bronze medal to a platinum medal. So we were getting ready to apply. Like, we were a bronze rated bike friendly city and we wanted to get up to silver. So with that, we needed to reapply. That application was tied to her individual email address, because historically she was the only person doing the bikeway stuff. And then I still don't know what some of the things that were on her individual laptop that were saved in her own documents and on her desktop that I didn't have access to and just kind of made it work. So sometimes we may be a single point of failure and we don't even we don't even think about it. And so when we think about this, you know, is it an individual's fault? Is it the leader's fault? Or is the system at fault? Because sometimes it's a matter of resources. So in both of those previous examples, there was short staff. There was one person that like had to do it. So it was the circumstances that caused that to happen. So we'll talk a little bit about what we can do to mitigate that even when we've got a short staff. But sometimes it is the individual. Sometimes it's the leader itself. One of the things that I've seen just in my experience as a civilian outside the military, a lot of times people treat their job as proprietary. So these are my job descriptions within this circle. But within this circle, there's this small circle right here, and I can only do this thing. I'm the only person on my team that knows how to do this thing. And I believe that this thing provides me value, so I'm not going to share it with anybody because I want to maintain my value with the agency or the entity that I work for. And although that might cause individual value, it does not build a cohesive team. One of the barriers that I try to break on a regular basis is bringing shared understanding to the table. Like, we all need to know what everybody else is doing. Can we share skills? You may be the subject matter expert, which is great, but what if somebody's just got to log into the system real quick and fix one thing? That's not going to degrade the value that you bring to the agency. You know, sometimes it's just a matter of time. A lot of us, we might get tunnel vision. So we're focused on our individual job, and it makes it hard to sync with the rest of the group. I've seen this a lot during COVID because I got immediately into a work from home scenario when I started working for the city of Houston. So now everybody is in their rooms or their home offices, and we don't have that environment where I can just go to the cubicle next to me and ask a quick question. Or I can make a quick phone call to somebody and they know it's somebody from the city because of the caller ID. Like I'm originally from Detroit, I have a 313 cell phone number. So people automatically thought it was spam when I started calling. Like, who is this? Who's it? And like, no, it's me. So then I started putting that number in my signature block too. So then they know, oh, the guy from Detroit, he just moved here. Okay. But sometimes we're just wrapped up in what we're doing individually, and if we don't get back with the group, if we don't sync routinely, we don't know what's going on. And sometimes when we talk about resources, think about if you've ever used volunteers or interns before, you know those jobs are very temporary. How do we make sure, and those sometimes we get some very motivated young people that can change the whole system over in a matter of a semester, in a matter of the summer. So how are we retaining that information and so that the next intern or somebody full-time can pick it up after that? And I'm going to talk about a GOTWA as one of the things. It's a very simple thing that we can input in place. This is going to be the framework for everything else that I talk about today. This is the military contingency plan. I originally learned about the GOTWA in my basic training in my officer leader course. We discussed patrolling, and the GOTWA is one of the main things that we talk about in patrolling. Because usually we're patrolling and there's something that we got to do. Maybe it's something that we have to observe. Maybe there's an enemy that we need to go take care of. Who knows what it is? But before we get to that final destination, it's on the leader to do a reconnaissance. So usually that leader will take a small contingent. If you're a Star Trek fan like myself, you know about the away team, the small group that goes off, but they leave everybody else there. And before that leader leaves, they have to give a GOTWA. And the GOTWA, so the G, where I'm going. I am going, it could be a distance, it could be a direction, it could be a meeting, if we're not in the field. I am going here, I need to be here at this point. Other people that I'm taking with me. So when I was a lieutenant, I would take my radio operator so I can have communications. I might take some of my subordinate leaders with me. Depending on the nature of the situation, I might have a security detail. Time you should expect me to return, I'll let you know. All right, I'll be back within an hour, or I'll be back within 45 minutes. What to do if I don't come back? Should you automatically assume that the worst has happened to me? Should you automatically assume that the enemy is coming? And then what to take if the enemy strikes while I'm gone? So somebody else has to be in charge while I'm gone. And when we talk about the Gatwa in the civilian world, obviously there are no enemy strikes happening. So I want you to change the A to the worst case scenario. And you can frame this Gatwa for short-term absences, long-term absences. Just kind of think about the framework and think about who receives your Gatwa. Who's that person that you're going to pull to the side and say, hey, I'm going to be out for a minute. This is what I need to do. These are the essential tasks that you need to take care of while I'm gone. This is who's in charge while I'm gone. If my absence is extended, this is what happens. So for the next 10 minutes, we're going to do a quick, what's your Gatwa? You can discuss amongst each other. If you came here in a group, you can work as a group. If you want to work individually, if you just want to write some stuff down. But I want you to think about this for the next 10 minutes. If you were to be gone from your job all next week, like just something happened, and you're not going to be in Monday through Friday, who receives your Gatwa? Who gets that guidance on what to do in your absence? What are those key meetings? What are those deadlines, those tasks that need to get done? And then you're going to be out. How do you validate that it's going to get done? Are they going to give you an update? Are they going to give you a call? Are you going to sync up the next Monday? What information do you need to leave them? Do you need to leave them access to important documents? Do you have something on your computer that you need to share with them real quick? Do you need to email them something? Is there some paperwork on your desk that they got to pick up? And then who's in your away message? So the away message is one of the things that I have to do on a regular basis. Because due to me being in the National Guard, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in, usually the summer, if I'm lucky, I got to be gone. So what if somebody needs to get a hold of me while I'm gone? Who's that person in the email, that away message, that I'm going to be out of the office for the next 5 days, and you need to reach so-and-so and so-and-so. Who's in your voicemail? Who are they going to call? And then also think about what is going to happen if you're gone another week. So let's say Friday rolls around and you say, well, unfortunately, I'm going to be gone another week. What's some of the things that they got to do? So we'll spend a quick 10 minutes. I'll drink a little bit of water, hit the restroom if you like. And yeah, if anybody would like to share afterwards, love to hear what you say. So 11:07.
this ain't still.
So would anybody like to share their got with? Yes, no, maybe? All right, no problem. So let's talk about a got that's in action. So we've seen what happened when Derek and his friend did not know what was going on. So let's talk about one that kind of works out.
Some people.
Okay, this interview is over.
Go home, lay low, the truth will come out.
I can't, I have too much work to do. This department is not going to deputy direct itself.
I think we can manage. Just give me your schedule and we'll cover for you. Okay, I've made copies of Leslie's daily work schedule. So we'll just split the teams and each team will take 10 items and we'll knock this out. Which meeting is this?
Reorganization of local auditing systems.
Kill me. All right, first order of business. Leslie? Where's Leslie? Oh, I gave her the day off. Paul thought that was best. Oh yeah, that's good. So you'll be making the presentation then, Ron? Yep. Yes. Unbelievable.
Hey, what happened?
Got a call from some panicky morning joggers. Apparently sanitation didn't empty this dumpster, to the raccoons' delight.
I thought raccoons were supposed to be nocturnal.
Not in this town, sweetheart. In this town, they're 24/7. We can't have raccoons for the Christmas thing. They'll hunt the kids for sport. Fess up, guys. Who dropped the ball?
Bring a case of beer to sanitation. Bring a case of... Yeah, this one's our fault, Ron, and we will take care of this for you.
Okay, good, because I have to run a public forum, supervise the maintenance crews, and teach crafts at the senior center simultaneously. Okay, my name is Ron. You don't need to know my last name. Whoever wants to talk, go ahead, and we'll be out of here in a tight 15.
I found a sandwich in one of your parks, and I want to know why it didn't have mayonnaise. What's so funny?
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think kids should be allowed with playground equipment.
Okay, we've been over this. If you're worried about swine flu, use hand sanitizer.
I'm not worried about swine flu. I already had the swine flu. I'm worried about turtle flu.
Turtle flu.
Turtle flu.
Turtle flu. Oh, thank God. There's a bunch of messages waiting for you about a bunch of things I don't understand.
Hi, this is Leslie Nope in the Parks Department.
So that was Parks and Rec. If you're not familiar with the show, it takes place in the fictional city of Pawnee, Indiana. Fun fact, Pawnee is loosely based on the city of Muncie. If you look at some of the episodes, they have a map of the town, and that is a map of Muncie. And it follows the staff of the Parks and Recreation Department of Pawnee. Leslie, the deputy director, arguably the hardest working woman in the state of Indiana in this show, has everything going on, and she has to take a day off due to some political controversies that are going on. So what do? They had a relatively simple plan to cover for her, divided up all her tasks based on her schedule. Did they get it all done? Probably not. You know, they probably didn't get, definitely if they tried to get it done, they didn't get it done to the standard that Leslie may have done it. But all in all, the place didn't implode. The public meeting still happened. There was still a presence there. And the key things, so making sure some of those meetings happened, the raccoons in the garbage, because that was one of the big events that was happening in the park. something that if it would have failed, then that would have caused very big blowback on the city of Pawnee's administration. They made sure that that was successful. And the place didn't implode. And arguably, I would say one of the most important things that we can take away from that scene, Ron Swanson, who's kind of her second in command, works with her on a regular basis, stepped up, said, hey, this is what we're gonna do. Gathered everybody together and said, this is the plan. So, who's your number one? I'm not done with the Star Trek references, as you can see. Tell you from my time as an executive officer. So the executive officer is the second in command of a company. And my company commander, I sit down with him. Usually what we do in the military as leaders, when we get new subordinate leaders, we sit down for a counseling. And we say, hey, on this piece of paper are your duties, your responsibilities. These are my expectations as your leader of what I want you to accomplish. You have an opportunity to say what you want to get out of this position, how I can develop you to take it to the next level. And we go forth from there. And then we regularly check that document, usually quarterly, to see how progress is going. And then there's an annual review that goes on paper, that goes into the personnel file to say, you did this, this, and this correct. You did this, this, this wrong. This is where I rank you amongst everybody else that are your peers. So I'm sitting down with the captain. I'm a senior lieutenant. And he asked me, what's your job? As the executive officer, what is your job? I was like, oh, well, I handle logistics and supply for the company. I work with the supply sergeant. We make sure everything gets to where it needs to be, gets the trucks together and all of that. He said, yeah, that's your job, but that's not your job. What is your job? I'm like, well, you want me to mentor the other lieutenants because I'm the senior lieutenant of all the lieutenants. And I've sat and been a platoon leader before, so I know what right looks like. So I help mentor them. I help them solve problems before it gets to you. He said, yeah, but that's not your job. This is what you do. What is your job? And I said, well, I don't know. Because at this point, I'm just thinking about what I've seen the XOs, the executive officers before me do. And then he brings out the publication. So the Army has a series of publications that say how we're supposed to operate, the things that we're supposed to do, and they cover the gamut of everything. They cover everything from unit formations to gas. Like there's a 600 some odd page manual that is solely dedicated towards like gasoline and oils because we use regular gas, we use diesel gas, we use other kinds of fuel and stuff like that, jet fuel, helicopter fuel, and it's all different. So it's this thick. I personally have not read it because I'm a light infantryman and we walk everywhere. But the Infantry Rifle Company is the publication that was dedicated towards the unit that I was in at that time. And he opened it up and he said, this is your job. The executive officer is the second in command. His primary role is to assist the commander in mission planning and accomplishment, and he assumes command of the company as required. Now that was from the 2006 publication. Since executive officers do all the other stuff that I mentioned, they added some more words in the second paragraph to say logistics and some of the other things. But he did that and he looked me dead in the eye and said, if I'm not here, you're in charge. That's your job. All of that other stuff, that you do that too, but if I am not here, my expectation is that you lead the company and you run the training and you get everything together. So that's what I want to talk about, like who's your number one? And I have a picture of probably one of the more famous number ones because they just called him number one in most of the episodes. Commander William Riker, he was first officer of the Star Trek Enterprise in The Next Generation. And he took charge of the Enterprise whenever Picard was out doing Picard things. When he was out in the world, out on other worlds, when he was incapacitated, kidnapped, if you're familiar with the show, you know those things happened on a regular basis. You know how often he took charge? I looked it up. In 23% of all of the episodes of Star Trek, The Next Generation, across all seasons, Riker took charge of the Enterprise because Picard was either incapacitated or he was off ship. So I want you to think about that. If you're gone one day out of the week, can your team survive? Can they make it happen? Can they make it work? And think about your number one, who that second is. Think about what they need to be successful. So that number one is probably that person that gets that gauntlet. That number one is probably the person that might enforce or double check on that gauntlet. What do they need in order to be successful? And also, I mean, the military, of course, has very strict, like, ranks, rules, responsibilities. Everybody got a job. However, you don't necessarily need the same number one for every situation. It doesn't have to fall on the shoulders of one person. One of the things that military commanders and officers in charge have is the ability to delegate authority to anybody. As long as that person has the aptitude, they have the knowledge and information in order to do it. Sometimes there's a rank requirement, but sometimes there isn't. But as long as they have the tools necessary and they're competent to do the job, you can do so. When I was a commander, I delegated my authority for a bunch of different things. And I didn't do it to all people because I didn't want it to fall on the shoulders of one person. Because if that person's gone, then we're back in the same boat. Because if I'm gone and they're gone, you know, still single point of failure. So sometimes I would have a primary and alternate. Sometimes we share the wealth. So the person that's in charge of the Equal Opportunity Program might not be the same person that's in charge of making sure the convoy gets out on time. Might not be the same person that's in charge of safety and risk management. Because if you share the responsibility, then everybody develops together. And then also everybody takes more ownership. And you are refining your subordinates in order to be leaders in the event that you're gone. But also when we think long term, if you don't, I don't want to be in the same position that I am in right now, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. So the people under me need to be prepared when I get promoted or I move on or I do something else, because somebody's got to take that step. So we build redundancies. 2 is 1 and 1 is none is a quote that my current officer in charge says on a regular basis. And I've tried to figure out where it was from. It was like, oh, so a few of the people who kind of do the military consultant circuit and do the TED Talks on leadership and have discussions similar to one that I'm doing today, a lot of them are Navy SEALs. I am not that good, and I don't like boats, so you'll never see that next to my name. But 2 is 1 and 1 is none is a phrase that the SEALs use, and it's about always having a plan B. Because having 2 plans is about as good as having 1 plan, because 1 is bound to fail. And if you only have 1 plan, you might as well say that you have none, because now you're stuck with executing that plan, and that plan might not be a good plan, or that plan might just fail. Like, what do you do then? So we can think about building redundancies. How do we incorporate duplicates? How do we incorporate backups? Think of your emergency kit. So like I'm in Houston. Aisha and I, we have a hurricane plan. We have a hurricane plan. We know where we're gonna go, what we're gonna take. We've got first aid kits in both of our cars. we've got our routes, primary, secondary, all of that. Obviously, you're not going to get hurricanes here, but the Midwest got tornadoes. We still have severe storm events that you've probably prepared for. If the lights go out, do you have spare batteries for the flashlight? We all probably do, right? So it's the same thing, incorporating those kinds of redundancies so the team has the tools to execute the plan B. So 3 of the things that I want to talk about are, what are redundancies in your information plan? So how are people getting information? How are you sharing information? Is it all just on one computer? Is it all paperwork? How are you doing it? Think about the redundancies in your communication plan. How do you get in touch with each other? Every time we have a military mission, there's a PACE plan. There's a primary, alternate, contingent, and emergency. So that is our communications plan. Because I tell you what, it will always fail. Something will always fail. So we might want to use military radios and then might switch to digital communications. And then worst case scenario, you've got a runner. You've got somebody coming to deliver a message because they got to drive to you. Or if you're just out, run to you. And then what are the redundancies in your skill sets of your team? Do you have one person that is available to do the thing, or are there multiple people? So when I was getting my master's in urban planning, I took 2 courses in geographic information systems, GIS. I build maps. I love building maps. And when I got to work as a transportation planner, I realized that the Houston Planning and Development Department, they have a whole section dedicated towards building maps. We've got a whole crew, and they're responsible for all the maps. Now, they build the main city maps, they build the district maps, they build the zoning maps, they field whenever somebody requests something, so like a FOIA request, and they want like maps or historic maps, they do all that. So if they're doing that, what if my team just wants one little bitty map of a roadway with like a dotted line for a sidewalk that we want to put in? Do they have the time to do that? Probably not. So I raised my hand and said, hey, I know how to build maps, I can do that. And not only can I do that, I can teach other people how to use this system, because the beauty of it is that it's a citywide license for the program. Everybody has the program on their computer, so everybody can use the program. It's just about whether or not they have the ability to do so. So when you build your redundancies, let's talk about how you share information, how you communicate with each other. How often do your group sync? When you sync, what do you share? Is it just that, hey, this is what I'm doing today, this is what I'm doing tomorrow? One of the things that we incorporate in our sync meetings is, how do we collaborate? So if the operations shop is doing one thing, and the logistics shop is doing another thing, and the human resources shop is doing a third thing, chances are there are ways for us all to work with each other. Because one, everything goes through the operations shop if we tell people what to do. Usually, operations, we're trying to execute a task, and we need the logistics people because they're the ones that say, I know you've got a great plan, that is awesome, but we only have this many vehicles, or you only have this many people, or we only have this much food, so these are your constraints. And then the HR people is like, yeah, you want to execute this plan, that's great, but where are the people? How are we going to pay them? How are we going to take care of them? Are we putting in people for awards? Are they going above and beyond? So a lot of times when we have those sync meetings, it's not just about what we are doing, but it's about how others in the circle can help us, and that continues to build the shared understanding. We have a board that's probably takes up the space of 2 of these, and it outlines the whole year, month by month, and it says these are the big items that everyone needs to know about. And these are all of the people that need to participate. You might not have to do the whole year. Maybe it's just for the week, maybe it's just for the month. Knowledge management. How are people getting documents? Is everything saved on one person's desktop? Is everything tied to one person's password? How do you have shared drives? Do you use Microsoft Teams? Do you use Google? Are there ways to share the information so that somebody can just look it up without asking you directly for it? And are there ways that people can contribute to it? So I always keep track changes on, because usually there's like 10 people that have a hand on a shared document and they can all put stuff in there. Using track changes is great. And then common accounts. So one of the things that I started doing when I was at the City of Houston, when I realized that things were tied to individuals, like, well, wait a minute, don't we have a common email address? Yeah. Because we have a common email address, because if you want to email the Transportation Planning Department, we've got an email dedicated to that. I'm like, okay, well, what do we use it for? Just to answer emails? All right, well, how about we tie the map to it? How about we tie all of the different agencies that we communicate and collaborate with? How about we give that as our main email address? So now everybody sees it and everybody knows what's going on. And oh, by the way, this is an email address that we take turns directly answering. So once a week, we change hands. So everybody answers that email address to make sure that we're having effective communication with the public. And then I'll bring up the away message again, because it's very pivotal. Professional development. You could build redundancies in your professional development plan. One of the best ways to do it is to talk about sharing skills. So who's that key person that knows that new thing? Who's that key person that does that? Train what? They can train, they can run the training. So one of the things that we did, of course, in the National Guard, is respond to a lot of different incidents with the public. So how do we train for that? So if we're doing rescue operations, right? So let's say there's a flood and we have to do rescue operations. Of course, we know some things about that. I am not that savvy on rescue operations, but I guarantee there's a sergeant that is very aware on how to do it, because maybe they're EMT on the civilian side. Hey, I don't care what rank you are, you know this. You are the expert on this. So you're going to teach all of us the best practices. And that is another way to empower your subordinates, because they now have buy-in, they now have input. I've done the same thing with, of course, in the military, we shoot. I have people on my team that do precision shooting for a living. They go out and they go buy their own equipment and they do this stuff as a hobby. Okay, get in front of everybody. What are the best practices? What are the best practices? Another thing in your professional development plan that you're implementing, what's necessary to cover? So rehearse your gobble. Hey, if somebody's gone, this is what we do. This is how we react to it. This is the things that we put in place. Because if you rehearse it, then everybody knows what's going to happen. One of my favorite things to do when we're training out in the field is to take away the leader. I usually take away either the leader or like the most motivated person. And see, all right, what happens? They're gone. What do you do? What do you do? And I learned that in infantry school, because we had a rescue mission, and it was funny because there were two Lieutenant Smiths. There was myself and there was a Lieutenant Christopher Smith. And so we're doing a rescue mission. So what the guys did is the instructors were like, all right, well, we're gonna make some of you casualties, and then you have to get them back to safety. So all I hear is, Lieutenant Smith, you're down. I'm like, well, which one? The other Smith was from Jamaica, so he's like, American Smith. I'm like, oh. So like, now I'm down. And you know, why am I down? Because you're big. If anybody's gonna do any kind of rescue, like you could take somebody and you have no problem carrying them. So it's not a problem. It's a problem. What about your smaller soldiers that have to do the same thing? How do they do it? Because there are ways to do it the right way to like manage the weight balance and stuff like that. So they've got to do that. So that's one thing, and I do the same thing. That's one of the things that you can rehearse. Your emergency plan. What happens if somebody's gone? That could be a part of your professional development. And then just another quick 10-minute drill. Maybe less, because I see well, I'm almost done. We're 11:30. So we're doing pretty good. Suggest over the next 10 minutes, you can discuss amongst each other. You can write notes again. Think about what redundancies you have in place that can be improved, and then what new redundancies you can incorporate in the next month. Because let's be realistic, we're never going to change the world in a day. Even if you show up Monday and you say to your team, this is what we're going to do, let's just say that it's going to take a month to train it, teach it, rehearse it, and really implement it. And we'll do 7 minutes and pick back up at 11:40.
It's not bad. We do that system. And they can follow you.
And we are back. I hope y'all got some good redundancies that you've been thinking about that you can execute later. And before I wrap up, the last thing that I want to cover is what if I'm on the staff? I chose this picture of the sisters for two reasons. One, due to like the videos that I chose, I felt like I needed some more color in my presentation, if I'm being 100% honest. And then two, this appears like a round table conversation. So this is, when I looked at the picture, I could not see a definitive leader. So it looks like all of these sisters are on the same playing field, collaborating and working with each other. So if you are a staff member, or if you are not the main leader, what can you do? I always recommend implementing an SOP, because as an executor, when I say my SOP is my bread and butter, I mean that wholeheartedly, because I have a lieutenant colonel to report to, and he tells me what to do, and I go do it. But if I do it well, and I do it often, I need to document it. So what are some SOPs that you can implement that will bring redundancies? You know, a lot of times you might see it in the way of business practices. So how does your company operate? How do you function on a regular basis? What are routines? So I have a battle rhythm at my full-time military job. Tuesdays, we meet with our higher command, the division, because I'm at the brigade level. Thursdays, we meet with the subordinate command, the battalions. Because usually whatever we get on Tuesday, that gives us a day to process it, think about it, and then give guidance to those under us. We have internal syncs Tuesday afternoons and Thursday mornings. And then on a monthly basis, we have meetings with the commanders, both high and low, and then also some of our other counterparts, because even though I'm in the Texas Army National Guard, we have 2 divisions that we report to, one in the state of Missouri, one in Texas. And then we also have units all over the state of Texas and one in Missouri, just because of how it's formed up. Since we're in the National Guard, we're smaller units, we're more spread out. We don't have the land like you would think of like a big base like Fort Hood or Fort Bragg, so we're more dispersed out. So we have a battle rhythm to show where everybody needs to be, what are the sync meetings that happen on a weekly basis. And then we also have SOPs for those what-if scenarios that I talked about. And it doesn't necessarily mean a what if the leader goes down. We have like, well, what if a vehicle breaks down en route? What if we get this kind of report? What if we need to produce this kind of report? So we have those in hand. And if somebody asks you why you do a certain thing at your job, and the first thing that comes to your mind is, we've always done it that way, then it needs an SOP. Because if that's one of the things that you routinely do, let's put it on paper. So when you're building your SOP, some of the things that you might want to consider. One, what information, what are you going to put into it? I always look at it as, if somebody doesn't know what to do, if somebody's not familiar with the task itself, what can you give them in order to make sure that they're successful at the task? What kind of information do they need? Do they need a certain checklist? Do they need access to certain things? What are the steps? What are the steps for somebody brand new? I'm dealing with that right now because I am an infantry officer, but the Maneuver Enhancement Brigade is primarily an engineering unit. They're mostly engineers, and I don't really know much about engineers. Most of the engineers that I've come into contact with before joining this unit were small groups that I would bring into my formation because engineers blow things up. But engineers do way more than blow things up. We have civil engineers, we have mechanical engineers, we have engineers that specialize in building construction. We have engineers that specialize in route clearance. So, you know, they go out and make sure roads are good to go. We've got companies that build bridges. I had no idea. So one of the things that I'm figuring out, that I'm asking information for in real time, what are the SOPs for the engineers? How do you all operate? Because even though I'm still the officer in charge for area operations, and you're operating in my area. So I need to know what's the best way for you to operate. Also think about your medium. How are you going to distribute the SOP? Is it a document? Is it a spreadsheet? Is it a checklist? Is it a PowerPoint? Like we've created SOPs for all of these different things. Are your SOPs located in a shared folder? Are your SOPs located on a USB? Are your SOPs a part of the welcome packet? Because we've all had that welcome packet from HR. That is an SOP. Those are the guidelines, your employee guidelines. Also, file templates. If there's a certain way that your business does it's stationary, if there is a set PowerPoint scheme that everybody has to use, is your branding a part of that? I mean, we all got on Ace Purple, but I bet if you look in the university's communications plan, Ace Purple is a certain kind of purple. And all of the things on the UE logos, wherever it is the same shade of purple. We all might have that branding at the same time. And so a lot of the file templates that I've seen are useful, depending on where you work. Microsoft Office, those Word, PowerPoint presentations. If you're working in Photoshop, if you're working in Illustrator, or something else in the Adobe suite, there are those templates that you could draw from. ArcGIS, I use that to build maps. But if I'm building a map for the city of Houston and we're putting it to the public, like there's a standard. Because the GIS team was like, your map will have this, it will be in this place, the logo will be here, you will use these colors, and that way all of our maps look the same. And who needs to see it? Who needs access? Does your team need to see it? Does your supervisor need to sign off on it before you execute it? And kind of going back to that medium, where do you store it? Because some SOPs are worth being on digital. Other ones, like the fire escape plan, probably needs to be posted on the wall. So where is it located? And the other thing that you want to consider with your SOP is it is only as good as its use. If you just make it and you have this great document and you don't execute it, then you did all that work for nothing. And SOPs are not meant to be a line in the sand where you say this is the way and this is the only way that happens. Things change, things adapt. As you implement your SOPs, you should always incorporate time for regular refinement and additions, subtractions based on the elements at hand. Because the military does things on a regular basis to like update stuff. Perfect example is a lot of the equipment that we use. A lot of the equipment that we use now isn't the same equipment that we used 10, 20 years ago. The uniforms aren't even the same. Like I've got to go buy a new uniform because we're switching back to like the old school, like if you watch the World War II movies and all of that good stuff. We're switching back to those uniforms, so I'm gonna buy one. And then Aisha and I, we're gonna take some pictures. And we're gonna look like Carmen Jones and Harry Belafonte. But yeah, like everything changes, so you have to adapt the SOP based on the conditions. And so when you outline your SOPs, just consider these questions. What would you put in it? How would you build it? And who would you share it with? If you start off with those three things, everything else will fall into place. And to conclude, I want to add a quote from one of my favorite poets. Roderick Davis once said, if you don't got no sauce, then you're lost. But you can also get lost in the sauce. Don't get lost in your own sauce. Don't keep all of that information, all of those tools that you have in your careers to yourself. Share it with the team, build your team, and continue to mentor your team. And it's 11:50. Before I turn all this off, I just want to say I appreciate all of you. I appreciate you for listening and paying attention to me. It's been my pleasure. Especially y'all that I've looked up to since I was a student. I want to thank y'all for coming, showing up for me. Thank everybody if you're live streaming, if you're tuned in. I want to thank you for watching, even at home. And yeah, I just appreciate you. So if you have any questions, let me know. We're gonna take the slides and we're gonna make them a PDF and we're gonna share them with everybody. And that's it. I think Brother Watez might have some closing remarks. But that concludes my time.
Is the live stream gonna be available, the video presentation, will that be?
Yeah, it'll be available immediately following this.
The media?
Yeah.
And it'll be on the YouTube, right?
It'll be on the University of Evansville's YouTube channel.
Okay. I'm gonna share with my staff.
All right, I appreciate it.
I did have some problems with the use of the word redundancy. And trying to get it in my mind that it's something positive as opposed to something negative.
Right, yeah, we always think of like in a negative term because usually when somebody's being too redundant, it's a problem. I deal with the same.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Yeah, all right. I hope everybody got something out of it. I did. The military, as I introduced in the beginning, they are the leaders. They are the leaders in diversity. They are the leaders in organizational management. And they are the best in the world. And they have been long before we started to adopt corporate policies on leadership and diversity. And I really like the end here because there is something that's absent in institutional as well as corporate policy. It is adhering to standard operating procedures. And in many cases, there's just far, far too much improvisation and improvising and period that goes on, as opposed to having those standard operating procedures and also having that second person, and third person in case the leader goes down. Too many times we have that excuse where the leader's not here, the second person in charge is not here, and then there's the absence of standard operating procedures to fill the void for whatever is missing in the absence of leadership. So everything was great. I won't repeat everything you said because it's going to be on video and it will be accessible. But I really enjoyed it, man, and let it be duly noted. It helped to sharpen my leadership skills. It certainly did. Even as an ex-military person myself, I watched Brian grow up. I got to say that. I watched him come here as an 18-year-old, and then to look at him and see what he has transpired into, and a lot of that had to do with his military training. But most certainly, it was that foundation that he gained while a student here at the University of Evansville that taught him how to utilize his critical thinking skills. Without critical thinking skills, and you have nothing. We tend to suffer from cases of tunnel vision, and we see no end result. We see no way to accomplish what it is that we set out to do. But he's got this foundational expertise through his gainful education opportunity at the University of Evansville, and I'm sure when he's in meetings in the U.S. Army, they know him from U of E, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, all right. So with that said, we're going to have lunch shortly, and some other folks will be coming in for lunch. If you have any questions, we're going to take a picture. Don't nobody move. We always have to take that group picture. So if everybody would, please, let's do it right here. And if I could have the gentleman on the camera do that for us. Jay, bring the camera down. And if you guys don't mind, just move right here to the middle. And Brian, you sit in the middle, you and Dr. Smith, please. And we will gather around you under the light. We all kinfolk here, right? So I can say what I got to say, right?
Yeah.
Me and Cameron and a couple other people, we need extra light so we won't be here.
Yes, sir.
Let's get it.
I'm Schroeder. I asked to be before your number.
I need a light.
I know there's like, but you need to get up there with them.
Okay.
Somewhere.
Oh, okay. Well, I think this is my right.
Yeah, sure. I know, but I'm just saying that you need to be up here with him. What?
I'll get up there with you.
Good. Oh, yeah. Well,
Come on. So, you got the camera there?
Are we doing three
Where'd it
rows?
go?
You took it.
Oh, my bad. There's a camera there too, sir. If you would, please. Thank you.
What's that?
Go ahead and take a shot with Brian's camera.
oh, the camera's back there.
I'm
You
sure
want
we're
me to-
going to be up front.
Grab the camera, Jay. Hey, girl, get the camera high.
Her name's short too. That's all I heard. What are we looking
Renee,
at?
come on down. You sure? Okay. All right, you gotta peek through somebody's shoulder.
Windows.
All right.
We're close. We're not going to hide. Come on in. There.
Jay, I want you to be in the picture, man. You like a student. But go ahead, take a picture, man. I thought maybe you were getting adjusted for the camera, man.
One more.
Okay. Okay. And if you would, please, sir, if you don't mind.
It's been live this whole time. You're
Oh,
good.
no, I'm talking about with this camera.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
just see.
Yeah, sure, I'll try.
Yeah.
Can you see her?
Huh?
Can you see her?
I don't know. Well,
Watch out, one minute. Want to come up there?
Make sure that you're in the picture.
hold on. You're coming up front. Okay.
Yeah, because you're rather small.
But mighty.
Yeah. That's right, mighty. Come on other side of Cortez. She need a high chair.
Scoot in a little bit on that side, please.
Yes.
Just a little bit.
And that's like you know one another.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's called
That ain't going on right
Want to take a couple here?
All right.
Get you another one, hang on. Smile. Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right.
And put the hat chair back.
I was saying, let me make sure you get you from them. How you doing? Oh, amazing.
That was really good.
I'm glad.
Succession plans and
I'm
how
glad.
that's all looking.
That's good.
Is that
Making
one?
those succession plans right now. I haven't started mine yet, but I will, now that I know some stuff.
Right.
That's the house all the way in.
That's what we need to do.
Yep.
But you doing okay?
I'm doing good. I'm in Texas now. My wife and I, we're doing all right.